Hey, I'm Paul with BPro, and welcome to Campaign Spelunking. In today's episode, we're getting close to the top of these campaigns that were being modeled out, and then we start to get to actual campaigns that are being used with real content in it. So keep watching. And in today's episode, we're going to be talking about automation for service-based businesses here. So we got three campaigns that we're going to cover, and it's going to be pretty exciting. I guarantee it. So first thing we're going to do is look at this one here. Now this is really interesting because at this point in my coaching, I started to actually track the specific goals that we were working with in these campaign models here. If you remember, these were being used not to actually build the campaigns, but to model out how I was getting people started with using the software. So in this case, it's a service-based business. They wanted to fix the CRM, they had techs doing the things, and they wanted to be able to start delegating stuff. And then we got some other goals in here, ultimately trying to get to a franchise. So let's go ahead and see what this model actually looks like here. Now, we're seeing some similar structures that we've seen before. We have our old broken traffic sources that, don't exist anymore, but they proved where stuff was going. Basically, on the website, we were going to have a quote request form directly, and then a place where people could directly indicate what package they wanted. Now, both of these are pointing into the same quote responder sequence. The idea being that it doesn't matter what they were interested in, they were going to need a quote at some point. So we were going to go ahead and then do a call for them. Now, this is a web form goal. Internal forms didn't exist yet, as I've mentioned in previous episodes. So that's why this says internal. The idea would be that somebody requests a quote online, and then we pick up the phone and see what the result of that call is here. And it seems like there is really kind of three main options. Ideally, somebody's qualified for the service and they need an appointment, at which point we would go ahead and schedule it. This is going to be another internal form here. They may not be qualified for whatever the service was. I actually don't even remember what specific type of service it is, which is great because this kind of automation really is agnostic of the specific type of service that was being rendered here. And then the third option was a long-term nurture. Basically, they're qualified, but not right now. And this actually shows up a little later in the model, as we will see. Like previous campaigns, there's not really anything in these sequences yet. Those are going to start to show up in future episodes here. The other thing that was interesting is we have another internal form here for when people requested an estimate and we needed to go ahead and give it to them. So the idea here would be there'd be an internal form where we're collecting some information about their estimate, and then we would go ahead and deliver it to them. Then we would want to call them and see what they thought about that. I don't remember exactly how we were going to deliver this estimate or how people even requested it, but I believe it was the same idea as if somebody had gone to the website. If they called in or something like that, they were referred, we'd go ahead and send them an estimate. What's interesting here is that if we did deliver the estimate, the idea was we were going to go ahead and set up a link click goal to tell us, hey, listen, we've gone with another service, which would automatically put them into this long-term nurture sequence. My guess is that this is a kind of service that could be used over and over again, not a one-time thing. So maybe like a carpet cleaner or landscaper, something like that. Because even if they did go with another service, we would still want to go ahead and follow up with them. Something else you'll see here is that there is a general long-term nurture tagging, and this shows up later in the model as we will see. So the idea would be somebody requests a quote or an estimate, we call them, and then assuming that they're qualified, we would go ahead and schedule their appointment. This would be important to make sure that we're collecting the date and time of the appointment so we can dynamically put appointment reminders out to them. That was the fourth disposition of this call. If we were to call them, we could go ahead and schedule them right away. So when we're looking at the automation, it is important to make sure we have the date and information on file, because for these appointment reminders, now we don't have anything in here, but in real life, we would actually want to have a field timer with the appointment date in here so we can schedule dynamically around that. So on this particular form of an inbound call, and I guess this would be kind of any call, either inbound, outbound, um, at least going after based on how this model is they're going to be making a call regardless, whether it's inbound or not. And then we send appointment reminders to them. At the appointment, the idea is that either they're going to sell the service and then also deliver the service at the same time, at which point the service is done, or if there is already a service that was scheduled, the tech is going to be able to indicate they finished a service and say that the service is done. If we look back at the notes here, uh, we see that one of the immediate goals is this person was a lone sales rep, but he wanted the head tech to be able to also indicate that this service was done. So that's what this mechanism is up here. This is kind of to fill in people that weren't in the system already. And with the service done, there's nothing in here. I would probably recommend doing something like at least tagging them as a paid customer and likely some kind of follow-up that says, hey, thanks for letting us come out. Hope you enjoyed the service. If the service was only sold but not necessarily rendered or delivered, then they would need to schedule the service. So a similar mechanism where the service is scheduled and then we go ahead and process the service. In real life, it would probably go something from here where we sell the service, we come out and do the appointment, sell the service, we schedule the service, and then they would go ahead and go up to here. So again, it's really interesting to look at these earlier models because this kind of points into this. So I'd probably have something like this in real life, but I would move this further to the right so we don't have lines looping back and forth. There's also this loan invoice goal out here, which I'm assuming was a conversation that we didn't necessarily finish as we were planning this. Now, when they do the appointment, if they don't sell the service, they could say, hey, listen, not now. And then that would tag them as long-term nurture, which I believe would go ahead and pop them here into this long-term nurture now, which is really interesting. The other idea is that if the appointment was incomplete, we would go ahead and indicate we need to re-engage or reschedule with these folks. So looking at this model, it's interesting because these are note templates. We can tell because of the little orange symbol down here. If I were to do this, again, I'd probably use a proper internal form to indicate what, that the appointment was complete and then what happened with the appointment. Just like we did here at the very beginning where we had a call and there's a couple different options of what could happen as a result of the call. That's probably what I would do with this if I was doing a service-based business. And you can see this takes us from kind of the marketing through the sales and even a little bit of the fulfillment, actually the fulfillment itself. So this is here under the hood to make sure everything goes smoothly. So this is basically a non-pipeline based sales process here, which is the next campaign we're going to go ahead and look at. And I don't remember exactly why we have this here. This is literally just called sales lead to non-pipeline close. And it's in the middle of these client-based modelings that we were right here. So I don't know exactly why or when I would have been doing this. But it's interesting because if we look just at the colors of the icons here, we can see that somebody would fill out a form. The person receiving those emails would click a link, and then we'd apply a note to say the call is done, and then there would be some kind of a purchase here. This is a super linear model here, and if anything, this was being used to demonstrate how the automation would work. Perhaps maybe I had gone to an event or something like that, and I was modeling out how this would occur here. With these sequences, I don't think there's any content in here, although the idea is if somebody did request some product information and they did click on some specific links here, probably a link that says, hey, go ahead and give me a call, then there would be a task for the sales rep to call here. And then based on the call going positive, there'd be a note saying, yes, we want to go ahead and buy. We apply a note template. It sends some emails for them to go ahead and buy, and then they would go purchase it, at which point we'd want to go ahead and get into the new customer welcome sequence as well as some kind of an upsell here. And so this is a really good example of generally how we can use automation to take people from an external action to an internal action back to an external action. Because obviously, a user in the system has to apply the note. And of course, there's all sorts of things in here where people could fall down. If they request the product info, they may never click on a link to request a call. And if we do a call, they may not want to buy right after the first call, so there probably need to be some follow-up here. And then if they do want to buy and they don't immediately do it, we probably want to have some further nurture here. But given how this is a real linear, real straightforward thing, I was probably using this to demonstrate how we can chain together different types of goals to create a sales journey that does not require a pipeline, either an opportunity pipeline or a traditional visual pipeline here. The other thing to keep in mind, and I've mentioned this earlier, is this little, in previous episodes, this little person symbol. This indicates that this is an entry point into the campaign. What that means is if we apply this note here, even if somebody was not further in the stream, they're going to go ahead and enter the campaign at this point, and then they would go into here. Same thing with the product purchase. If they purchase it, they can just go right into the new customer sequence here. Now, based on what I know now, in real life, this would probably be a start and a stop goal. Right here, we can go ahead and stop when the product is purchased, and then we probably have another campaign that starts because the product was purchased here. And so that creates a clear difference between the sales and then the fulfillment. Let's go ahead and look at one more campaign, and then we'll go ahead and tell you to like and comment and subscribe and ask us questions in the comments. Now this is interesting because we still had the same, what are the goals here? So the first one is they wanted to drop their old email provider, and then they wanted to bring their list in and do some broadcasts here. And looking at the way this is structured, I think we were mapping out everything that was on the current website. So there was a website about to come. So there is a place to join the mailing list. There's a place on the website to request special events or weddings or something to do with corporate. And then if they went to a trade show, they would be able to register a lead and follow up with them. And then there is also a mechanism for people to request a physical catalog here. So looking at this, this leads me to believe it's some kind of a service-based business. Now this mechanism here of going to a trade show, I would recommend using this anytime you do any kind of an event, whether you're a vendor there or if you're just attending, or even for networking. This is really handy because you can quickly and easily and in this case, I would go ahead and bookmark it on your phone. So you meet somebody, you're like, oh, hey, cool, great. You get their information, have a bookmark to this form on your phone, and there you go. You can go ahead and follow up with them. And in future episodes, we're going to see what this follow-up is actually going to go ahead and look like. Here's just a placeholder idea of we would definitely send some kind of an immediate email, and then after a while, we'd probably send them something else. Now, these aren't pointing anywhere here. In real life, we know that these would probably point to either some kind of an inbound call or an outbound call, actually. So this is interesting. Here's an inbound call, and it's connected to nothing. My guess is that just like we saw in a previous campaign, this is a note template to indicate, listen, some kind of call was made, and there's probably going to need to be some follow-up here. The idea of bringing his list in from the old email provider is that there would be broadcasts that go out, and the call to action is, hey, if you're interested, go ahead and click here and let us know. When they click here, that would point them to a form where we can collect the phone number and whatever somebody might be interested in, and then we would go ahead and do some outbound calls to try and get them to make a purchase here. Likely, this would probably be a good use case for some kind of a formal pipeline or something like that, because just the fact that somebody puts in a phone number and they're interested, we might not get the sale right away, and we're going to want to follow up with them. And I don't think there is anything in here. However, this is a non-pipeline based model because we create a task immediately to go ahead and follow up with them. And then after some delay, there's another task to go ahead and follow up with these people. And based on the way that the automation model works is if somebody were to make a purchase, it's going to go pull them out of this sequence. So that second task may not show up. And this would be another example of a non-pipeline based sales process. So depending on the business, you may not want to go ahead and have a pipeline for each and every formal pipeline for every single person. It could just be a task-based sales process. Although, if you are going to invest human labor and have sales reps, I would definitely recommend having a proper pipeline so we can really follow up with people and nobody's ever going to slip through the cracks. But this mechanism here is really fun. I remember using this a lot, and I don't know why I stopped. The idea was just having people raise their hand and say, yes, I'm interested. You collect a little bit more information, and then you follow up with them. And then if they do click, but they don't actually fill out the form, we're going to go ahead and they would be considered a hot lead, hot phone lead, whatever. We would follow up with them to encourage them to go ahead and actually give us their phone number, and then we can follow up with them. So there you go. That's 3 ways that we can use automation for service-based businesses. Let me know what you think, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks for watching. If you're going to do anything, you might as well be pro.